Okay, welcome back. We're up to questions 25 to 28 of Acer's pink booklet. Now, I know I said in a previous video, I'm going to repeat what I said in a previous video, but I think this passage is a great example of the benefits that come from being very well read. So when you read this passage, it's very similar in like tone and kind of humor to Good Omens by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett. And I think that is the benefit of being very well read, is you can start drawing these connections and kind of read a passage and say, oh, that's quite similar to this other thing that I read recently or many years ago. And you can start picking up on the nuances, which I think some people struggle with. Now, I'm not saying go off and read Good Omens. To be honest, I think I got halfway through and then put it down, and it's like a 500-page book. I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is that if you have the time, just try and read as much as you can, as widely as you can. You know, you're not going to get a passage from a book that you've read unless you're incredibly lucky. But it does just give you more of that association, and then when you look at a passage and you see something, you can kind of equate it back to something else and say, this is very similar to this humor that I saw somewhere else, and it just kind of grounds it a little bit more than just looking at it as like, oh, scary English comprehension thing. So yeah, if you're somebody who doesn't read much and you do have lots of time before the Gamsat, if you're looking at this like a year before you're seeing the Gamsat, honestly, just go off and start reading as much as you can. In a variety of different sources. Don't bother with poetry, but you know, just read, just start reading as much as you can. I think it will really help. Okay, as always, I say with prose, go straight to the questions. So basically, yeah, this is a section where these two devils are trying to convert a Christian convert. Maybe it is actually from Good Omens. I don't know. I didn't read the whole book, so it could be. But it's very similar. And you have a senior devil telling a junior devil how to corrupt a human who has recently converted to Christianity. And I generally thought this passage was quite funny. Maybe that's just me being a nerd. So, in the first paragraph, keywords, first paragraph. Only look at the first paragraph when you answer this question. Do not look at the other paragraphs. So, he's specifically pointing you towards the first paragraph. The senior devil explains to the junior devil. So the senior devil is trying to explain to the junior devil how to convert somebody who has just converted to Christianity away from Christianity. A says that it is counterproductive to try and use the patient's happiness against him. That is correct, because he says rather than by encouraging him to use it as a means of merriment. So in this instance, we're talking about alcohol. So, you know, get the man drunk. But when somebody's drunk, they could use it as a means of merriment with his friends, you know, around a pub or a roaring fire, or they could use it in a bad, depressive way. So that is why A is correct. I'll go to the others. So B is incorrect. B says how to break down the patient's resistance when he's at its strongest. Well, from the passage, we see that the attack has a better chance of success when the world is drab and cold. So you are going to be more successful when the patient is not strong, when he's weak. C, that it is futile to target the patient while he's miserable. Nope, you should target the patient when he's miserable. That's the time when he's going to break. And then D, how to take advantage of the patient when he's happy. No, that's a complete contradiction to A, and the devil says, don't try and take advantage of the patient when he's happy. Wait until he's miserable, and that's when you strike. 26. An appropriate message of scripture would be one that. Now, I just want to make it clear that you are not expected to know scripture. So in this case, we're referring to scripture from the Bible. You're not expected to know the Bible or any scripture at all. So if you're somebody who is not Christian or Jewish and hasn't read like the Torah, don't panic. You're not meant to know it, okay? Just want to calm you down there. So let's look at the aim. What is the aim of the devil? These devils are aiming to turn the individual away from Christianity. And that's what they say in the passage and in the preamble, and you should also get that for the fact that they're devils. So if you were somebody and you were trying to turn somebody away from Christianity, how would you do that? Maybe you could convince them that God isn't real. Your whole foundational basis is not real. Maybe you could convince them that it's just too difficult, that you're never going to be a Christian. You weren't born into it. It's too difficult. They have all these rules and laws and things that you have to follow, and you're never going to be able to do that. And maybe you're just never going to be one because you weren't born into Christianity. So tough luck, sorry. So those are kind of like 3 ways that you would turn somebody away from Christianity. And one of those ways happens to be B, make the patient strive for goals he is incapable of achieving. The usual kind of thing with goal setting. If you make it too difficult and you fail, then you're likely to be turned away from the goal itself. So that is why the answer is B. Yes, I think that's pretty self-explanatory, but comment down below if it doesn't make sense. Question 27 says, why should we keep the patient away from these experienced Christians? What can these experienced Christians do? So we need to figure out, what is the patient struggling with here? Well, he's struggling with his faith. He's just converted to Christianity. Everything seems great, but of course there's going to be times when he questions his faith. And what can an experienced Christian do? An experienced Christian could tell him that questioning one's faith is natural and inevitable, and that's just going to happen. It's what everybody does, and it's okay. So that's okay. Which is why the answer here is C. And the reason that we know that it's the faith that he's struggling with is from this line: let him assume that the first ardors of his conversion might have. So assume that the first kind of honeymoon period of his conversion is sort of worn off at this time. Hopefully that made sense. The purpose of the passage is to. Keyword, purpose. What is the passage attempting to do here? So A says, show readers that spirituality can be lively and humorous. Now, look, I think the passage is quite funny. I think it's humorous. I think it's very clever and witty. So I would agree that spirituality can be lively and humorous, but it's not the purpose. The purpose of the passage is not to show that. It just is that. And that's why reading the question is really important. B and C are wrong and irrelevant, and then D is alert readers to spiritual dangers. So that is the purpose of the passage, because it's literally showing a discussion between 2 devils of who are spiritual dangers of how to convert people from Christianity. So that is what the purpose is. So again, just really make sure that you're answering the correct question, because otherwise you might have gone with A, which is wrong. Okay, in the next video we will do question 29.